Hi everyone, I'm Vera. Today is my turn again to do my presentation, and today my topic is about assessment of writing. As we all know, the importance of writing in the 21st century cannot be overestimated. Researchers and test developers have devoted much time and attention to improving the practice of writing assessment by investigating the factors that influence performance on writing tests and increase the reliability and validity of these assessments. So today we will take a look at the assessment of writing, but this article is more like an overall summary of the assessment of writing. It's not like other researches. The author divided this article into 5 parts, included the first part, purposes of writing tests, the nature of second language writing, types of writing assessments, characteristics of writing tests, tasks and scoring, and the last part, challenges and opportunities for the future. But there is also the 6th part, it's my critical review. We will talk about it later. So now let's move to the first part, purposes of writing tests. Why do we test writing? Some scholars, they have distinguished between proficiency assessment and educational assessment. A proficiency test is not tied to a specific curriculum, but is intended to, I'm sorry, here is a mistake, to give an overall assessment of language ability, often to predict how well students will function in academic or work settings. And I guess all of us, we are very familiar with this type of examination. Like if we want to study in USM, we have to attend the IELTS examination and to get a score. The second type is educational assessment. Educational assessments take place in the context of a given educational program and comprise several types of tests, like a placement test or diagnostic test or achievement test. And also we are very familiar with this type of test. For example, like a placement test is used to determine where a student fits in a given curriculum. And I still remember that when I was a student study in high school, we have like a different type of classes. If you can get a very good test result, you can study in like the higher level classes. The second one, diagnostic and achievement tests tend to be, although are not always classroom-based assessments, diagnostic tests are used to identify specific areas of strengths and weaknesses, while achievement tests are used to determine whether students have mastered specific skills or knowledge that has been taught. And then let's take a look at the second part, the nature of second language writing. When we talk about applied linguistics, we generally concerned with learning and teaching a second language. But when we discuss writing assessment in applied linguistics, we usually refer to assessing writing in second language or foreign language contexts rather than assessing first language writing. But many first language writing concerns are also issues for the second language writing, particularly in academic settings. The degree to which first and second language writing assessments are distinct is related to several considerations, including age, context of learning, and proficiency level. Firstly, let's take a look at age. Because younger learners tend to be learning to write in their first language, they are developing literacy skills in both their first and second language. In contrast, older learners, depending on their background and history, may or may not have literacy skills in their first language. If they do, they can transfer many of the strategies from their first language onto their second. If they do not, then writing may simply refer to basic literacy skills. And then let's move to context. This context we here means second language and foreign language. Students learning to write in a second language context generally need to write for school or work. These students have an immediate need to master the rules and conventions of writing for specific purposes in that language. In a foreign language context, writing may be used to reinforce and practice the language structures like grammar and vocabulary learned in class rather than as authentic communication. In some situations, foreign language learners may never actually need to write in their second language outside the classroom, even though they may find opportunities to do so through the use of the internet. But I don't in favor of this opinion. Here we will discuss later in the end of our discussion. Then is the third nature of second language writing, proficiency level. At the earliest stage of language learning, writing is limited to the specific vocabulary and grammar that have been learned. Again, writing at this stage may be more appropriately used for reinforcing and practicing language structures. As students gain proficiency in the language, the focus in writing can be more on content development and organization, and less on the specifically linguistic aspect of writing. After we talk about the nature of second language writing, we will move to types of writing assessments. Here we will talk about 4 different types of writing assessments. First one is indirect test. An indirect test attempts to measure the sub-skills involved in writing, particularly grammar and usage, the multiple choice or other selected response measures. And according to some research, some such measures were prevalent in the USA in the 1970s and 1980s. Here, I want to mention that according to my own experience, I have such experience to attend the examination which has such type of assessment, but it's not so common, it's not so typical. A more common one is the second one, direct test. A direct test of writing requires the examinee to produce a continuous piece of prose in response to a set of instructions and has the following additional characteristics, like responses are ordinary at least 100 words. The instructions or prompt provides direction but allows the candidate considerable leeway in responding. Each response is read by at least one, preferably two, trained readers using a common skill, and the result is a number rather than a verbal description of the writing. And typical writing tests are also conducted under timed conditions, and the topic is frequently unknown to the candidates in advance. And I guess most of us, especially our Chinese students, we all have attended such type of test type. And then it's the third type, portfolio assessment. A portfolio can be defined as a purposeful collection of student works that exhibits to the student and others the student's effort, progress, or achievement in a given area. While portfolios have been implemented successfully in large-scale writing, portfolio assessment may be more feasible as a classroom assessment tool. This Northwest Evaluation Association, cited in Walcott, has mentioned this point of view. And but in my point of view, I don't have like such experience in my studying experience. I'm not sure. How about you? And the last type is impromptu essay. Impromptu writing tasks can take the form of different genres, such as letters, memoranda, or written instructions. And at the same time, writing can be integrated with listening, reading, or both listening and reading in tasks that require examinees to summarize or otherwise incorporate source materials from a reading or listening passage into their writing. And we have such type of assessment, but it's not so common. Then let's move to the next part, characteristics of writing tests, tasks, and scoring. For this part, the author discussed from two different dimensions. First one is tasks. Tasks, we can say it's what the writer will respond to. And the scoring, we can say it's how the writing will be evaluated. Some important features of the test task include subject matter, discourse mode, and stimulus material. First, let's take a look at subject matter. For subject matter, we can discuss from two aspects. The first type is personal topics. Personal topics include descriptions of self or family, discussion of personal likes and dislikes. Personal topics are more accessible to all test takers and tend to elicit a wider range of responses because we will be more familiar with such topics. And the second type of subject matter is non-personal topics. Non-personal topics are including argument essays about controversial social issues. For non-personal topics, they are more easier to score and more reliability. Then another feature is discourse mode. Discourse mode refers to the type of writing that candidates are expected to produce. The term discourse mode subsums a cluster of task features such as RARA, like essay, letter, rhetorical task, like narration, description, and exposition, and pattern of exposition, comparison, contrast, and process. And then we come to the last feature, stimulus material. While many traditional writing assessment tasks consist merely of the topic and instructions, it is also common to base writing tasks on stimulus material such as pictures, graphs, or other texts. Hills recommends that writing tasks be based on visual materials like pictures to ensure that it is only writing and not content knowledge that is being assessed. And the considerations for choosing an appropriate input text can be found in Wiggle and Shaw and Ware. We can find some material from their research. In addition to factors involving the task itself, several other factors that can be considered more logical or administrative need to be addressed when designing a writing test. Some of these include issues such as time allotment, instructions, whether or not to allow examinees a choice of tasks or topics, and whether or not to allow dictionaries. For a summary of research related to these issues, we can see the research of Wiggle in 2002. Then let's take a look at scoring features of writing assessments. Two important considerations in scoring writing assessments are designing or selecting a rating scale or scoring rubric, and secondly, selecting and training people or increasingly machines to score the written responses. And for this part, we will talk from the scoring types and selecting, training, and monitoring raters. So the first one, scoring types. Scoring types, we can talk from two different types. Our first type is holistic scale. In holistic scale, raters give a single score based on their overall impression of the writing. For example, like the scoring, like a scoring assessment in IELTS examination. and TOEFL writing test. A holistic scale is generally preferred in situations where a large number of tests need to be scored in a short time, such as in placement test. Secondly, let's talk about analytic skill. In analytic skill, raters give separate scores for different aspects of the writing, such as content, organization, and use of language. An analytic skill can provide more useful information to students. And then let's take a look at the selecting, training, and monitoring raters. Selecting, training, and monitoring raters is a central aspect of writing assessment. Research has focused on the effects of rater background and training on scores. And the research also suggests that training can mitigate but not eliminate differences in rater severity and consistency due to background variables. And for this reason, many programs have begun using test analysis tools such as multifaceted measurement to adjust scores for differences between raters. And nowadays, another very important development with regards to scoring is the use of automated essay scoring system, where we can call it AES, such as Erater, IntelliMetric, and MyAccess. I'm not sure if you have used such like a rater system. But some research has demonstrated that automated systems are at least as reliable scoring standard as it is humans. But whether we should use such system in our assessment system is a controversial issue. So I'm not sure how do you think, but in my point of view, I think that we can use the combination of this type of erater system and human beings. The combination of both of them can be more effective. And then is the last part of this essay. The fifth part is about challenges and opportunities for the future. The author didn't write so many aspects in this part. Firstly, the author mentioned that a single-timed impromptu essay is inadequate for assessing writing. And secondly, human and financial costs of producing and scoring writing assessments is huge. But at the same time, there is also opportunities. The importance of writing in the business world and the growth of instant global communication may also mean that new assessments for business writing will need to be developed that are specifically tailored to the roles and tasks of international business communities. So this is an additional area of potential growth in writing assessment. That's all about this article, and the last part is my critical review. Because this is not a research, it's only an overall summary of writing assessments, so I don't have many critical review about this article. In the first part of this uh, paper, the author mentioned that the purposes of writing tests are proficiency assessment and educational assessment, but I doubt that it is not comprehensive because in some special situation like in a company, we may have some tests, English writing tests. I mean, it's for the purpose of to test if the some special some special terms for uh, their work. And in the next part, the nature of second language writing, the author mentioned that, and I doubt that context cannot distinguish the first language writing and second language writing very well. In the characteristics part, the author mentioned the scoring characters, but in the whole article, the author didn't mention any specific rubrics or samples of scoring. If we have such rubrics or samples in the appendix, I guess we can understand this feature more. We can understand this feature more visually. And the last part, the last one, in the challenges and opportunities part, it's also not so comprehensive, because in my understanding, in the assessment of writing, it's not so precise, or we can say it's not so objective, because we don't have generally speaking, we don't have such rules or standards for the raters to assess the task. So that might be another challenges. Okay, that's all about my presentation. Thank you.